Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Peace Luv Biz. We are talking with another of our fine entrepreneurs this week, trying to learn a little bit more of, taking it from rocks to rubble all the way up to the Ritz-Carlton of the business. I am your host, Steve Higgins, the emotional support chinchilla of the group, and we are here today with Mary, who is in the midst of 5 hurricanes at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, they've combined it all into one big one, so there's that.
Yeah,
That's kind of
for
fun.
sure. Yeah. But
But I'm almost on the other side of it, so I have internet connection. Life is good. My Jeep
mhm.
didn't float away. That's a real thing here. And as always, there's chicken, coffee, and wine on hand, so we're all good
Yeah.
here in the Roach Jesus household.
Now, in the Dominican, they don't understand about hurricane parties, so Mary's getting everybody up to speed.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
speaking of parties, let's introduce our guest, who is the master of Cajun, the owner of Roll Cajun Boudin, Matt Coltrin. How are you, bud?
Hey, man, doing great, Steven. Thanks for having me, Mary.
I actually said that right, I think, like you taught me.
You
You
did
did.
very
I'm
well.
learning.
I can't do that. I'm just going to refer to you.
I've said it once. I don't need to say it again. I'll let Matt take it from here. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Matt. Matt is the owner of Roll Cajun Boudin food truck. But he's not just a food truck, he's an extraordinaire, he's award winning, he's the best in Alabama. You could go see the accolades that he's got on his website, rollcajun.com. But Matt, let's jump in, man. You're in Birmingham, Alabama. How did you get into this? Like, where did you start with this?
Yes, thanks for having me. A lot of people who cook Cajun food are originally from Louisiana, right? And like 9 out of 10 people, when they come by the truck, they say, "Are you from New Orleans?" And I say, "No, I ain't from New Orleans, man. That's a big ass state. There's a lot more cities in Louisiana than just New Orleans." Now, I literally went to New Orleans this weekend. I watched the Saints get their ass kicked by the
By our
Bucks.
hometown Bucks, yes. Thank you.
Oh, matter of fact, New Orleans isn't even considered to be in Cajun country. Cajun country, where the original Cajuns, when they migrated down from the province of Acadie in Nova Scotia, they migrated down to modern day Lafayette, which is more central southwest Louisiana. But anyway, I was born in a small city called Brobridge, right outside of Lafayette. And Brobridge is the crawfish capital of the world. That is, I guess, our claim to fame. Also, the family, they were the bros who like originally settled there, and they're like, "We got to build a bridge to get over Bayou Teche to get to this sucker." And they like, "What are we gonna call this place?" And we like, "Well, we built a bridge. Let's just call this place Bro Bridge." There's so many creative names down in Louisiana.
Well, you guys give it your own Louisiana spin as well. It's not bro as in BRO, it's AUX, isn't
Oh,
it?
it's the
It's the
Cajuns.
Cajun.
It's like, remember, like, so when the original Acadians migrated down from Acadie, they weren't leaving because they were the best of the best, right? There's two stories. Like, number one, they say they back like in the 1700s, like they refused to follow British colonization, and so they left. But some people say they were just all the prostitutes and criminals, and they were exiled. So you can just pick whatever story you want. So somewhere between like Canada and Lafayette, they just started misspelling words and stuff, and they just went with it. But what I'll tell you is that Cajun people, when they migrated and settled, they mixed with Native American. Believe it or not, there's a lot of Vietnamese, farming rice, doing different things, African American culture, Spanish culture, and they started to create this cuisine that was really Canadian French with this idea of we're poor and we have to learn how to live off the land. And so that's kinda how, like, Cajun culture, Cajun flavors all came to be, with just kind of like this melting pot of different ethnicities and countries coming together to cook this stuff, right? And so back to my point is a lot of people that you find like me who grew up in Southwest Louisiana. So my family's from Breaux Bridge, my mom lives there. We actually ended up moving to Lake Charles, so I actually moved west a little bit more and grew up there. But people where I'm from are incredibly passionate about their heritage, and they're incredibly passionate about their damn food.
Mhm.
And so, like, if you go to any person's house and you eat like a gumbo, man, everybody thinks they gumbo the best gumbo you ever had. Or you'll go to somebody's house to eat a jambalaya, and that dude's like, "My jambalaya is the best you ever had." And the way that we say thank you and we say I love you is by sharing that food with you, our friends. And it's a lot more exciting when you have the opportunity to share it with people who don't live in Louisiana, because the flavor, the culture, and just the way that we carry ourselves and are like naturally social beings is not regular across the United States, right? So I grew up just in love with my heritage, in love with cooking. I just generally enjoyed making little adjustments and doing all the things to get it exactly the way that I thought it was supposed to taste.
Mm.
And so I've always enjoyed cooking, and I joined the military. So I ran track in college. That didn't work out too good. And right after 9/11, I was like, you know what? I felt a sense of service. I was like, I've kind of never really seriously thought about joining the military. And I ended up doing 21 years and retired 2 years ago. But the point of that story is when I was
Best laid
active
plans.
duty, there were two things that happened. Yeah. So there were two things that happened. Number one, I got the opportunity to travel. And so, I mean, Okinawa, I've been to the Netherlands, I've been Korea, been to Iraq a few times. I've been to the Middle East. I mean, I've been all over the place. And every time I would travel, you know what? They didn't have no damn boudin nowhere. And if they did have a Cajun restaurant, it tastes like shit. And so I would tell my buddies, I'd be like, yo, there ain't Cajun about that right there. And so two things happened. Number one, as I traveled and I went to all these Cajun restaurants, I'd be like, I am so embarrassed that this is what we're pushing forward as a representation of Cajun culture. And number two, boudin is like one of my favorite foods. My mom used to ship it to me in ice chests, and she'd pack it, then she'd send it to me, and I'd end up paying like $200 for $40 worth of damn boudin. And I was like, Jesus, I love boudin, but I don't love it that much, bro. Like, Jesus Louise. And so you know, at a certain point, it was fairly early in my career. I was like, you know what? I love cooking. I think I can figure this out. And so I bought me a little sausage stuffer. Man, I still got that sucker where you hand crank it. And I was like, man, I'm just going to start tinkering with it. But as I started to make it, I was like, oh, next time I'm going to try that. Oh, next time I'm going to do a little bit of this. Next time. And then I'd go home on leave and I go to the partner's house, like, oh, you make boudin? All right, cool. What you put in it? Oh, okay, you put a little bit of that. Okay, cool. I'm going to take me a little note and I'm going to go back to the drawing board. And so, like, over the years, I would go to different places and I just be like, oh, okay, I pick up a little bit there. And I just kind of started working it. And so, I've been making boudin now for 15 to 20 years. When I was active duty, I'd have a lot of partners come by the house and I'd be like, hey man, y'all try this. And they'd be like, what's that? I'd be like, just eat it, bro. Like, I'll tell you what it is after. And a lot of people kind of initially are taken aback by boudin because the texture is different. It looks like sausage, but the texture is different. But I call it Cajun crack because once you taste it, you're like, holy shit, I don't know what that was, but I know I want some more.
Yeah.
And then they just keep coming back. So all my military friends really enjoyed it. And then like the big test was my buddies back home. Your friends can't be like, they can't tell you doing a good job, because I got the good friends that keep you
Hmm.
down so you don't get too
Yeah.
cocky. Like, yeah, it's all right, bro. That stuff's not that bad. Like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. So it just started end up being a passion, and then I started doing different types, doing all kinds of stuff, and that's kind of the big story. And listen, I ain't gonna make this a whole history lesson, but I gotta tell y'all what the hell is boudin. So we already talked about where the Cajuns came from. They were all poor. A lot of them were pig farmers, and they would sell the good cuts of meat at market, and all the leftover like rough and tough pieces of meat to make sausage. So they slow cook it down and they didn't have enough meat to make sausage. So they added the liver, the gizzards, the heart, all the juju from the pig. And they still didn't have enough meat. So they added rice because rice was plentiful down south. And so, like, all right, now we got this stuffing. We still going to just stick it like in a sausage casing. and we're gonna call it La Boudagna because in French, La Boudagna is French for blood sausage.
Mhm.
And but that is kind of like how it began. And then like everything in Cajun heritage, like po' boys were poor boys. It was just the leftovers thrown on some French bread at the end of the week. Gumbo was all the leftovers thrown in a pot, make a roux, make a soup. Boudin was a poor man's food. So yeah, that's so I just started making boudin like crazy.
See, that takes me back
And
to my.
do you look at where you're at now and go and see how you revolutionized something that was so like I mean, you can tell that you're very proud of your heritage and where you come from and your people, but can you see how you've literally revolutionized something that was like poor man's food and turned it into I mean, your reviews are outrageous. Like you've really turned and took the market on something that it all began on something from your heart, which is obviously how we have a really good connection because that's how I think of my stuff. But I mean, so number feeds the soul, not accounting. But do you see how much you've revolutionized, or are you still humble enough that you don't see it yet?
Well, I do believe, like, there's been generations of people who got us from the juju and the gizzards and all that to, like, modern day. I One thing that I am proud about is that, like, anybody can slow cook some pork, put some rice in that sucker, stick it in a casing and call it boudin, right?
Mhm.
And it's like and you can do that with a lot of different kind of Cajun foods. What makes it the Cajun man is cooking it and you sweat and then your sweat dripping in the pot and it gives it that special salty flavor. Like that's what you gotta have in there. I'm just kidding. But you do have to have all the little things right. And that's the one thing like that I had to learn as an entrepreneur is like when I'm making like 5 pounds of boudin and I've got like my spices set for this, how do I go from 5 pounds to 400 pounds and it still tastes the exact same? Now that's scaling, but then the other piece is like when you're inventing a recipe, you're gonna find like a lot of Cajun people don't measure nothing, right? Like I've got about 10 recipes that are written on like paper plates, napkins, like freaking ripped off receipts and stuff. And so like when you're doing small batch, you like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and then it got to the point where I had to kind of use my Air Force background in operations to be like, okay, what's a little bit of this mean? But no, to your point, Mary, like, yeah, it is. I've always loved Cajun heritage, and that's why I remind people of where it came from and like where all these spices have come from. Because, even today, and I mentioned the crawfish earlier, a lot of Cajun food is really food that used to be stuff that people would eat. A mud bug, you eating that thing that lives in the ground and smells like dirt. Crawfish used to be like damn 89 cents a pound cooked when I was a kid. And now people want like 15, $20. It's crazy. And the thing is like you have to know how to do it, right? You have to know how to not only spice it correctly, but you also have to know how to prepare it. And that's why I tell people the process is equally as important as like the seasonings and things.
Well, at what point? Because you were doing this for 15 years. At what point was like, okay, I'm out of the military. I want to get into the business. How do I spread this out to everybody else? How
Yeah.
did you get there?
So when I got out, I literally moved to Alabama for my first civilian job. So like Alabama wasn't on my top 30 list of retirement destinations, but
Really?
I
Strange.
was close to home and I felt like it was a good fit for me professionally to transition to this area. Well, I moved here and I was like, damn, this place is kind of nice. And so I moved here. I'm doing this job. I ended up transitioning to a job where I was teleworking. And I quickly found out like I'm not like a telework kind of guy. And so I was like, shit, I got all this extra time. I just got this wild hair in my ass. And I'm like, dude, I make boudin. We're close enough to Louisiana where I think these people probably travel down to Louisiana. A lot of people in this area, it seems like they really like Southern food. And there's a lot of people who have migrated from Louisiana up into this area. Honestly, it started off, I was getting a beard trim at my barber. And I was like, hey, man, I'm thinking about opening a small business. And he's like, hey, dude, go to this website. You pay like $500 and they do all the paperwork for you. I was like, all right, cool. Bada bing, bada boom. And all shit, I got an LLC now. Look at that. That's crazy. And then like literally like a month later, my brother-in-law came up to visit, and he's an entrepreneur. He owns like a real estate business. And he's like, hey man, go to this website, they can make you a logo. Bada bing, bada boom. Roll Cajun Boudin was what came, it came up to be. And then, there was a time where I was like, okay, well, I gotta build a truck. So originally I built a trailer, where I had a trailer, and all I was gonna do was I was gonna make boudin and sell it like a grocery store. Like every Sunday, go park the trailer. Hey, you want boudin? You ain't gotta drive down to Louisiana. I promise you, this is the real deal. Come get your boudin. And because you'll find a lot of people who love boudin. Every time they go to Louisiana, they stop at exit 102, Best Stopper Billy's, and they buy like 50 to 100 pounds, bring it back in an ice chest, and that's good for the year.
Hey, as an English guy, my dad, whenever he comes over, he brings a chest full of oatcakes for me, like, and stuff. It happens. People will travel for their food,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And so I opened the trailer ish like in March of last year, just like the grocery. Started selling like boudin. And
I thought it was a little earlier that you started because we connected before then. It just wasn't, you weren't open, right?
correct. Yeah, I wasn't open. We started talking about it. We had
Yeah.
built a website, things like that. And Mary, you and I, we met because my kitchen. So in order to prepare food to sell to people, you have to do it in a commercial space. So that was like one of the first decisions where it was like finally, and honestly, that was before I bought the trailer, is like I had to find a place to cook the stuff. So I met Richard, the guy who I was getting the beard trim from, was like, hey man, there's a place up the street you should go to. I think that's in one of them kitchens where you can rent space. Like it was so crazy how all this happened. The dude I was getting a beard trim from, he's like, yeah, go make an LLC. The next week he's like, hey, go up the road. That dude's got a kitchen. And seriously, I walked in there and got a kitchen. So we started just selling like and I never planned on really being, certainly not full time in the food industry. I always felt like this was gonna be kinda like a fun hobby where I would just make boudin and people would come and get boudin, right? Um, but then, like, really between March and August of last year, sales started to go, but a lot of people were asking me for hot food. A lot of people were calling me, asking me for boudin balls, and other caterers started asking me to cook other items. I prepared a 30-gallon jambalaya for somebody for an event. I sold it to them, and then they sold it for like double the price. So I started doing that, and I was like, holy crap, people want me to do hot food. So I got that grocery store and I flipped it into a food truck. But the food truck was mainly built to be able to do like catering and to prepare hot food for people. So in August is when I like officially opened as like a food truck to like do hot food, and I could start like soliciting.
I
And
think we
then
just
from
had
August,
to at that point, didn't we? And something happened. I don't remember
yeah,
what it was. But I remember we were like, okay, we've got to be officially open in August. And so we
yeah,
did.
yeah. I mean, some of it was because like I think a couple months before that, I told somebody, they asked me if I could do their dad's
That was
80th
it.
birthday party.
We were getting catering
And
stuff. And I was like, dude, we've got to
so I was like,
open.
yeah, I was like, yeah, we should be done by then. And dude, like the night before my first gig, when I told him I could do it, it was like a month and a half, 2 months. I'm like, oh yeah, that trailer gonna be done by then. Holy shit. The night before that event, I didn't have any running water. I didn't have electricity yet. None of the TVs were on. And so literally the night before, I'm working in the trailer. I've got water, I've got electricity, and the lights come on. And I'm like, holy shit, I didn't go to sleep last night. That sucks. And so I remember I'm working on this damn trailer. I'm trying to get the TVs up and stuff. And my wife comes out. She's like, Matt, stop fiddling with the trailer. She's like, you have got to start preparing food. And so like that particular event, and remember, like I'm like very green and I have cooked for like hundreds of people before, but it's always been like my friends, right? I've never been hired to cook for somebody. And that day I realized it's a lot different. Like this ain't your partners. This is like a business deal, right? but like they wanted
Mhm.
fried chicken pieces and they wanted a shrimp boil plus sides. And so fried chicken pieces are hard, right? Like it takes some time. In a shrimp boil, it's not super hard, but it's hard when you're trying to fry chicken at the same time. And it gets a little bit harder when you didn't go to sleep the night before. Finally, I'm like, okay, I'm going to shut it down and start prepping. I just got to. I go and I get my chicken that had been marinating and it stinks like it was rotten. The chicken that I had bought was rotten. So I literally had to throw away like shit, 20 pounds, 30 pounds of chicken pieces. And I had to go to the store, get new chicken, marinate, let it sit. And so I ended up being like 45 minutes to an hour late to the detail. And I think we forgot the lemons. Oh shit. You can't have no shrimp bowl without
Nope.
no damn lemons. And
Mm-mm.
then I was like, all right, we need to get this water rolling. So look, we're gonna get this water rolling, then we'll go get some lemons. Where's the lighter? We ain't got no lighter either. So then I learned lesson number two. When you're in mobile vending, you better have all your shit. So here's me at my first detail, an hour late, walking around asking people if they got a lighter. Now, one of the brothers was like really upset. Like he's staring us down, like, when's the food gonna be ready? When's the food gonna be ready? I'm like, bro, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And so what's amazing is the lady who had hired us, she knew it was like our first go. And when that food started rolling out, I don't know if it was just because people were starving, because like they were kind of hungry, but bro, they melted. They melted, and they're like, "Dude, that's the best fried chicken I ever had." And so even to this day, that lady tells people to come to us and stuff. But like that first day, we learned so much, right? Like it was just an incredible learning experience. So like
Mhm.
another thing is like what I learned is when you show up to an event, they want you to lead, right? And so I kind of went back in my back pocket of my military experience. It's like when you show up, you don't say, "Hey, where do you guys want me to put this? Hey, where do you want to do this? Hey," you got to go in there and be like, "Hey, this is what I need. Here's the space. This is where I'm going. Are you good with that?" Okay. Because there's still going to be some back and forth. But like when you're the caterer, you go and you cater. That's your thing. And so, I mean, there's just so much that I learned from that first go, but I did feel a certain way about like that one brother constantly like not antagonizing us, but I was like, dude, like, is this what I want to be in? Because like I don't ever want to feel like I'm working for somebody, but I believe that occurred because I wasn't personifying the leader that I needed to
Mm.
be for that event.
Do you also think that also, like, I ask this because we go through this all the time. Is it also
Yeah.
shows you who the type of client you really want to attract? I mean, granted,
Ab-
when you're catering an event, you have all types of personalities, but the person that you have that contract with, you want to make sure that you connect with that person, right?
you know, Absolutely too. Like, it's like when you're out on a date or even a better example is like when you go for a job interview, like yeah, you want that job because you want a paycheck, but like you're interviewing that company at the same time as they're interviewing you. And
Hmm.
but I
Oh
but
my
I do
God,
believe
is it not like talking to Matt, like talking to me?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it
so
really is.
funny.
because I'm that dude at the end of the job interview, like, do you have any questions? I'm like, yeah, matter of fact, I do. Just hang on real quick. Let me get out my notepad.
It's just like a
But yeah, but I'll tell you what, like, but I do believe that you can control that space with good use of soft skills
Mhm.
and I think that but I'll tell you, like, I really had some reservations. Like, is this something I want to do? Like, I never want to feel like, but it's also the way you carry yourself. It's about the way like your confidence levels and
Mhm.
so I'll tell you, I've never had that issue ever again. But Mary, to your point, absolutely. Like people call sometimes for details and you can just tell like it's gonna be like it might not be a good fit based off of like our vibe, our menu, or what have you. But
Mhm.
generally speaking, I've really never had to tell anybody no due to those reasons. And we've had some
Mhm.
kind of picky customers. But I tell people, like, our secret weapon is our food, and ultimately, that's what people pay for. They want good food, and what I've found is when that
Well, but
food
they're
slams.
paying. I also, sorry to interrupt, but I also want to make the point of yes, they're paying for good food. However, they are paying for the good food, but you're the master, and to your point, you're the shmee, the subject matter expert of that food.
Yeah,
So
they're
they
paying
are
for you.
really paying for Matt at the end of the day. I mean, yes,
Mhm.
but it's the food you're producing that nobody can. If anybody could replicate it, why haven't they? Oh,
You know what I've come to realize is, like, every like, I think food is, like, the number one thing, but I also believe, like, everything else is as critically important, like, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is just a little bit
mhm,
extraordinary. Anyway, but I also believe that, like, when you do an event and that person pays for a service, that person, if they get good feedback from their people and they feel special, they're like, damn,
absolutely.
damn, girl, like, where'd you find this dude? This dude's the shit. And they get those dopamine hits of their friends and family, like telling them,
Hmm.
like, holy shit, it's so badass. And then you win. And so, like, that's kind of what we always strive for is we don't just want people to enjoy our stuff, but we want that critical feedback to get to those decision makers. So when they feel good about the decision they made, then they're going to come back.
Well, and a lot of your growth has been so organic, right? It's a lot of
Mhm.
word of mouth. It's a lot of those decision makers talking to other decision makers. Is there any one way that you've specifically kind of targeted people, like with your growth, like going to different events, festivals, or have you just let it kind of come to you?
Well, that's a great question, Steve. What I'll tell you is a lot of food vendors and a lot of caterers have minimums, right? They say, look, we ain't going to come out unless you can guarantee $1,000. And if you don't hit $1,000, then you have to pay the difference. We said we don't have any minimums. If you need a food truck, we believe the quality of our food will drive our prices. Sometimes that's bit us in the ass, and sometimes it's been totally worth it. But to your point, Steve, we have like strategically used the food truck to travel and hit as many different destinations as possible in order to expose our people to our brand. But what I found is like if you're just posted up like in a Walmart parking lot, people aren't gonna stop. A lot of people will, but most people are gonna be like, man, I've never seen that truck before. I'm just gonna keep rolling. But if you can have your truck in an intimate, smaller venue where they feel a lot more comfortable just to try you out because they're there, they're walking, all that kind of stuff, then they're going to be more likely to try your food. And that's like, we believe that if people give us a shot and try our food, then they're going to come back. And so we
Hmm.
have gone to a million different places, to a million small venues that a lot of caterers most likely wouldn't have gone to due to the financial ramifications of the issue in order to expose our food to the greatest variety of people.
Makes sense. And I like the fact that you're using the truck and the fact that you have wheels to go to different places. Like, and I know locally here in Tampa, I mean, we have a food truck every Friday night. We're currently reviewing that in my neighborhood because, like, okay, people are starting to, the novelty's worn off with the food trucks. People are spending a lot
Mhm.
less because running a food truck's pretty pricey. So you have to charge, you pass on the pricing to the customers at the end of the day. But, where is that balance? And, you found Mary through Richard. At what point was it that you realized, oh man, I don't need an accountant. I don't need a bookkeeper. I need guidance. Like, what was that point?
At least my military experience, I've learned the true value of like teams, and there's no one in the military that does anything by themselves. Like Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not sure if you ever saw that
No.
movie. I don't know if that's like at the end when he kills him, but like nobody makes decisions in a vacuum. And so like I knew like whenever I was gonna start this journey and we were gonna ramp up and we were gonna like I had to have a teammate, and the first teammate that I wanted to find was like somebody who could help me with the financial oversight, with the decision making and the direction of the business. Because there's three things in life, like know what you don't know, and then like you gotta figure out the shit that you don't know what you don't know. But I like And part two, where like, know what you don't know, it was like this whole financial piece. And so I'm just blessed that Mary was able to connect with me for discount prices as we were just ramping this thing up and trying to figure out the world while simultaneously telling me, hey, do this, don't do that, don't hit the red button. Because like, I mean, it wasn't a hard decision. Everything, it was an easy decision, to be quite honest. And it was even better, once we started doing business. What I would say is a lot of stuff in a startup is all about costs, right? We did not come into this with any large loans or anything like that. It's all been kind of like savings and self-funded. And so we made the CFO position a priority from the very beginning. And we're like, hey, like this is something we absolutely is a priority. Steve, before you do your segue, what I'll tell you is like, I think one important thing to know about like all like small business entrepreneurs, particularly startups, is you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And here's what I'll tell you about what I mean by that. We're blessed and it's great that people like our product and people have come and we've had growth throughout the year. And like I believe October, this will probably be one of our largest grossing months ever. I'm fairly certain it'll probably be the largest grossing month we've ever had. The great news is that if you have a product and you fill a need for people and there's a demand, then you got something worth pushing and it's worth growing. Because I think if you're a small business and people ain't buying shit, well then man, that ain't good, right? Like that's probably why there's such a volatile, death rate of small businesses, particularly in the service industry. But what's crazy is dependent on how fast that scaling occurs, you still ain't gonna have a whole lot of money. Matter of fact, when I got a kitchen, I'm like, hey Richard, like, dude, like I just need a small place where I cook some boudin once a month. And he's like, all right, you gonna share with a taco lady. I'm like, great. And then it started to be like twice a month, then like once a week, then like every day. We went from making probably about like 30 pounds of boudin a month to 400 pounds a week. If you sell hamburgers and you sell a hamburger for $4 and it costs you $1 to make the hamburger, right? Man, you excited. You got $3, but those $3 you don't put in your pocket because you're going to go buy meat now for like 5 hamburgers. And so the next week, your bank account's going to go from $1 to $0 to $5. And then you're going to go buy meat for more hamburgers. Let's go back down to 0. And then you start going and then before you know it, all this money that's coming in, it's not going in your pocket. So like what's funny is my background has always been like aircraft operations. And like, I'd like to believe that I'm pretty good at it. I got hired at NASA to do operational consulting to make their logistics and operations lines more lean. And so every time like I'm working in my truck, I think to myself, how can I make this faster? It's about incorporating technology into your processes to where like, do I need a human doing that or can like a computer do that for me? And so like for instance, last week I bought another electric warmer and I bought another because I know like the events we've been doing now, we can get away with 2. But before that person asks me to do an event where I need 3, I've already got it. And so, you know what I mean? And so it's like these little things where you've got to kind of always have your eye on the ball, what's going on now. But you, like you said, Mary, to your point, you've always got to know what's coming as
Yeah.
well.
It's that roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. You're going with the ups and downs, but you're also adaptable. You're rolling with the punches. You can kind of see what's coming while also knowing what you've got in front of you. And we said it to some other people too about you, where it's you are the exception to the rule. I was just about to say we're going to wrap this episode, and anybody that is interested, they should be after hearing the story because it's phenomenal. Go to rollcajun.com. You'll be able to see all of Matt's amazing events. You can see what he's got lined up coming up for the next couple of weeks and book him out for any caterings as well. And if you want to contact him directly, you're welcome to. If you want to go through us, go to peacelovbiz.com and we can happily put you in touch as well. So until next time, guys, next episode, part 2 will be coming up with Matt shortly. Until next time, stay spicy, stay structured, and keep rolling with peace and love. See you guys next week.